Which hand wraps should I get? And how do I wrap my hands?
I'm over at Orthodox Natural Fitness, and I am going to go over another question that I get asked frequently by people who are just beginning boxing, which is, how do I wrap my hands and where do I get wraps from? So the length of wrap that I always recommend is 180 inches, right? 180 inches. Those are the adult size wraps. They also make youth wraps in 108 inches, and they make everything in between that as well. If you have smaller hands, you might want to go toward the lower end. If you have bigger hands, the more wrap that you have, the better support you have. If you have smaller hands and you want to wear larger wraps too, that's great, right? The more support you have, the better for your hands, the better for your bones. So a couple different brands that I like to get are Ringside, Meister MMA, and Venom makes a pretty decent hand wrap. There are some other ones that have, and the reason I like them is because of this Velcro covers this large portion of this large area right here. So if you can find a style from another brand or another company that makes them this way, that's great, but these usually stay on the best. There are some other ones that have a smaller strip, and they will work for a little while until the strip or the integrity of the stitching breaks. So again, if you can get the Velcro strapped right onto the ribbon, then that's the one that you want. I'm gonna go over how to wrap the hands while weaving through the fingers, and I'm gonna do one where we don't weave through the fingers, all right? Just to show everybody a couple different ways to do this, because there are so many different ways that you can wrap your hand. All right, here we go now. So for the purposes of this video, we have a red wrap, we got a blue wrap. Again, I have two different brands that I like to use, Ringside and Meister MMA. The important thing is that the wraps are at least 180 inches. They're close to 180 inches if they're not 180 inches, all right? Because my hands are a little bit bigger, so I need more support for the wrist and for my knuckles. That is the important part of what they protect when we're wearing them. The other thing that it does is it stabilizes my wrist when it's inside the glove, so that when I hit something, it doesn't slide to the edge of the glove, and then I don't have hyperextension at the wrist right here. That's what the wraps are made for. So with the blue wrap, I'm going to do something a little different. I'm gonna go in between my fingers, and with the red wrap, I'm going to do a basic wrap, which is just a crisscross or an X pattern over the back side of my hand. So you can follow along and do either one that you like. I'm gonna use the red wrap on my left hand, and then I'm gonna use the blue wrap on my right hand. So I always unstrap the Velcro and then throw the ribbon out, or get it all the way to the end where the thumb loop is. And some different types of wrap might have actual letters on the end that says this side down or this side up, and the side that says this side down or this side up, it should be up away from your skin, or if it's this side down, it should be on the touching your skin, making contact with your skin. So what I'm gonna do is loop my thumb through the loop, and then I'm gonna let the wrap drape over the back side of my hand, so the ribbon's draping over the back. Now I'm gonna go about half the thickness of the wrap as I start to drape, and I'm just letting the ribbon fall over my hand. I'm not tightening down as I'm doing this, because I don't want to cut off the circulation to my fingers before I get to the end of the wrap. And that definitely happens if you're cranking on the wrap. So there are a couple of places that I'm going to show you where to tighten it down at, but this is not one of them at the beginning. So I go 2 times down the wrist, about half the thickness of the wrap, and then I come up the wrist about 2 times as well. I go 1 and 2, and then I'll come up, and it'll be on the back side of the hand, pretty close to my pinky, the knuckle on my pinky finger. So I'm gonna go underneath all 4 fingers, all 4 digits here, and then go over the top side of my knuckles. Then I'm gonna come back underneath the palm and go down to the wrist here. So the outside of my wrist is where I'm going. Now I'm gonna loop underneath the wrist and then make an X over the back of my hand. So right here is my X. After I make my X, I'm going to weave underneath the knuckles one more time, and then over. I go under and then back down to the outside of the wrist, go underneath the wrist, underneath the thumb, and then come back up to the pinky, and there's my X again. So I'm just gonna keep on making this weave pattern over the knuckles, and try to keep your fingertips wide the whole time so that your bones have space to wiggle once you get ready to slide them in the gloves and you ball up your fist and make contact with something. Otherwise, if your hands are compressed, you'll end up running the risk of breaking either one of the metacarpals or one of your phalanges up top here. So try to keep your fingers and your hands safe by making sure that you keep the grip nice and wide on your hand as you're doing your wrap. Again, I come underneath the wrist and then go over to the pinky. I come underneath the knuckles, go back over to the pinky. come underneath the knuckles again, go back down to the wrist on the side where the pinky is. Come back underneath the knuckle again, or back underneath the wrist, sorry, and then I go up to the top side of my pinky one more time. Now, I'm starting to run out of wrap here, so what I wanna do is I'm gonna try to lock the hand wrap into place. So I'm gonna pull out, and then I'm gonna pull back toward my body this way. This is one of the only places that I'm tightening down on. And I'm gonna go underneath the wrist, and then over the top side of the hand, back in between the index and the thumb, all right? Now, once I get back here, I'm gonna pull just a little bit tighter again to make sure that I lock the wrap into place up top here. That way it doesn't slide around once I put my hand in the glove. And again, I pull down, and I'm gonna go over the top side of the wrist here to do that. Now, I can make an X, or if you're running out of wrap like I am right here, see the Velcro portion, I can either go over the top and come back around, or you're just gonna go around the wrist until you are out of wrap. So that is one way, and that is the left side. And again, it's nice and snug. I can fit my hand in the glove without the wraps pushing back over to my knuckles. And this is simple enough and quick enough to get done in a few minutes. Once you get used to it, this will take you about 60 seconds to do each hand. All right, so again, I'm gonna unravel, and then I'm gonna come back here to the thumb loop where it says this side down on these ringside wraps. So again, ringside, Meister, throwdown also makes a really good hand wrap, but these are really good for just the instruction of what you guys need. So paying attention here, I'm gonna go down the wrist twice like I did before. 1, 2, and then I'm gonna go up the wrist twice. 1 and 2. Same exact way that I started the last one is how I'm gonna start this one. So we go underneath the knuckles, I go over the knuckles. I'm gonna come back underneath where my thumb is. This is where it changes up. And now I'm gonna go back to my pinky, and I'm gonna wrap around my pinky just like so. So I made a little loop around my pinky, and then I'm gonna come back down to the thumb, underneath the thumb. I go back up to the ring finger, and I wrap around the ring finger, and then back over to the outside of the wrist where the pinky is again. All right, so you see that? Now, I go on the outside of the wrist, come back underneath, and I go up and to the middle finger. So, get my middle finger looped around now. See how I'm making this nice little looping pattern around each one of my fingers? And I'm still just draping the wrap over my hands. I'm not cranking down on it just yet. And now I'm going around the index finger, and I'm gonna go back to the pinky. Now I got a nice layered knuckle or padding over here over my knuckles, which is what I want. And I'm gonna start to go up, and I'm gonna add even more cushion around them now. So up to the pinky, then underneath the knuckles. I go over the knuckles about 4 or 5 times. You can do 5 or 6 depending on how big or small your hands are. And then we do the same thing for the thumb loop here. So I'm gonna go for my thumb, I'm gonna pull the wrap out to the side in between my index and thumb, and then I'm gonna pull it back toward my body this way. Now this is where I crank down just a little bit, and I'm gonna go underneath the wrist, back over the top side. See how I wrap just over the bottom of the ribbon so that it doesn't go sliding around. And I go back to the top side of my thumb right here. So when I'm on the thumb, I'm gonna pull down, and now I've run out of wrap because of the way that I did it and the way that we weave. So I have my Velcro portion over the top side of my wrist. I'm gonna crank down and strap it over the 2 bones of my arm, or my forearm. So the radial and the ulna is what we're looking for, all right? And that is it, that's a wrap. Hopefully that was helpful. Like I said, we showed you just a couple different ways that you can wrap your hands. One where you're weaving the fingers, the other one where you're not. Both ways work well. I prefer to use this one when I'm hitting the pads or I'm hitting a heavy bag. If I'm gonna spar, I try to wrap my hands a little more securely, and I do it in this way. So hopefully this helps. Hopefully you guys learned something, and we will see you in the next video when we teach you how to throw a proper punch. All right, have a great one.